Hi there! No, don't panic. You are on the right channel. Welcome back to Skeleton. As you know, I recently built an AFV model intent for a diorama. But I decided to add a second element to the scene, and this is it. I won't go in too much detail on the kit itself, but I'm swapping out those toy-like vinyl tracks for this workable track set from the same manufacturer. The biggest challenge with these cargo trucks is filling the bed. I'm taking the easy way out. I'm going to scratch build a tarp to cover the whole thing up. But first, I need to assemble the cargo bed. I'm starting with the classic modeling routine: cut, clean, and glue. To make the tarp, I'm using very simple material, standard baking paper found in any kitchen. First, I'm measuring the dimensions and roughly cutting out the pieces. Before gluing, I'm crumpling the paper randomly to give it a natural fabric-like texture. I'm securing them in place using PVA glue. Patience is key here, since it's not real canvas. I'm working step by step, letting each section dry before moving to the next side. I'm also adding details like the window flaps, tension straps, and tie-down points. And the tarp is done. Now we can get back to the main build. Honestly, there isn't much to explain here. I want to get through the assembly quickly so I can move on to the painting stage. Since this vehicle will be abandoned and heavily covered in mud, I'm wrapping up the assembly without worrying too much about sanding or filling every little gap. Remember, this is just a diorama element, not a standalone showpiece. I actually had to tear this part off. Turns out the windshield section need to go in first. I'm roughly painting the interior parts and gluing them in. Since I plan to dirty up the windows, the interior won't be very visible anyway. Okay, now for the part that sucks the will to live right out of you. I have to assemble two full tracks by cutting, cleaning and snapping together individual links. It involves gluing 111 parts first and then clicking together another 111 links. That's about 3 hours of my life gone. Finally, I can start painting. First, the primer. Then the base color. I'm brush painting the tarp with acrylics to hide that paper texture. I started with the base tone and am now dry brushing to add highlights and depth. After painting and mounting the wheels, I sealed everything with a gloss varnish to unify the layers and prep the surface for the weathering wash. At this stage, I'm also gluing the tracks in place. I'm applying a fairly heavy wash, nothing too subtle, and wiping away the excess. For the chipping effect, I'm just using a piece of sponge. I love sticking to basics here. These are soft pastels, great source of dense, high-quality pigment. You can mix them to get any earth tone you need. Sure, there are dedicated hobby products for this, but I find this method more versatile. Take this concrete effect paste for example. I can tint it however I want to create mud, or just use it for actual concrete texture. I'm applying the thick part of the mix where mud would accumulate and the thinner, watery mix for splatter effects. I created a simple wood grain effect just by sanding the surface. Now I am coloring the dried mud texture. I am applying dark pigments to areas that should look wet or fresh, and lighter tones to the dry, caked-on mud. I'm adding dirt and dust to the upper surfaces using pigments and plenty of lighter fluid. The fluid helps the pigments spread naturally over the surface, creating a much more realistic look. I'm dusting up the windshield with light pigments. I also masked off these areas to create the look of worn-out wipers that aren't doing their job properly. And finally, with some light fading to tie it all together, the model is complete.